Well, hello. I think we are live now here for YSS Let's Talk. My name is Matthew Voorhees. I am the Residential Program Director here at YSS, and I have the honor of overseeing our YSS residential substance use programs. And we are really excited tonight, to be celebrating 40 years of residential substance use treatment for YSS. So it has been since 1981, 40 years of services to our adolescents in Iowa for substance use treatment. So it is a huge event for us, very exciting. And I'm really pumped because we have so many people on tonight who are alumni of our program, going back to the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, and most more recent graduates. We have a lot of great people to share their stories this evening. And that's really what we're going to do, because, residential treatment is so much about relationships. It's so much about connections. And that's something we're going to talk about next week, too, on YSS Let's Talk. But these folks have gone through struggles, they've gone through life, and they have come out the other side, and they have really positive impact stories. And so I'm just really excited. And again, this is 40 years of service for YSS. And so what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the past, we're going to talk about the present, and we're also going to talk about our future vision too. So the past, we're going to have some past alumni, of course, sharing. We're going to have some more current alumni and talking about what we're doing right now currently in residential addiction treatment. And also going to go into our future vision. And so I'm very glad to have Andrew Allen, our president and CEO of YSS, here with us. And so I'm going to turn that over to him, because he's going to start talking about, because he's a graduate too, of course, from way back when. And so I'm going to turn that over to him and let him start sharing about that. And he will be helping me as we go through tonight's presentation.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Matthew. You are one of more than 300 committed YSSers across the state that's working to deliver on our mission to create hope and opportunity every day. I'm grateful for all that you do to support our work and to lead the team that is really transforming lives. YSS works in a lot of different areas. We're in prevention and child welfare and transition services, but we've got a very intentional focus on treatment, both from an outpatient standpoint as it relates to counseling and therapy and medication management. But one of our most intensive services is our residential addiction treatment program focused on adolescents. And like you said, pretty cool that this month, April 1981 was the mark of expansion of services at YSS, where we started out as Iowa's first emergency shelter for runaway and homeless youth. And when you work with runaway and homeless youth long enough, you realize that many of them are suffering from mental health issues, behavioral health issues, and substance use disorder. And so my predecessor, George Belitzos, identified a need and created a Youth Recovery House and the Adolescent Addiction Treatment Program that we know today. So yes, I'm excited to be a part of tonight's program. I'm grateful that we've got so many friends and family and people from across the state that are joining us. And I'm really, really excited to talk to some alums, people that are friends of mine who have been in recovery for a long time and are testaments that two things, that number one, treatment works and recovery is possible. So excited to get started. Really grateful, everybody, for joining us. You're in for quite a ride. As you mentioned, we're going to talk about the past, and we're going to hear from some current graduates, and then talk about the future for the program. So I don't know if there I did see a picture from the past. Was it those were actually my intake photos from 1995. So that's 26 years ago. You can kind of do the math. I was 17 years old. I had been admitted to treatment. I was not a happy camper. I didn't want to be at treatment. I didn't want people to be telling me what to do. But essentially what happened is I had a transformational experience. My life has not been the same since. And YSS helped create the foundation for the person that I am today. So excited to just keep pushing forward. I think, there's a little bit of history that we wanted to share. And I think the next slide that is going to come up is really a kind of well, actually, it's the map of the state of Iowa. Take a look at this, guys. YSS, Residential Addiction Treatment Program, that Matthew runs with a rock star team, has locations in North Iowa, Mason City. We added that 3 years ago, and a boys and a girls program in Central Iowa in Ames has served nearly 5,000 people. So 4,854 through the end of last fiscal year. We expect in this fiscal year we'll serve our 5,000th person. We've hit every county. I don't know if you can see the one county that we've not served anybody from. Way down there in the southwest corner, Fremont. So if anybody knows of a young person who's suffering from substance use disorder in Fremont County, send them our way so we can round out that map. I did want to just acknowledge really quickly on the next slide that YSS has operated out of a couple of different locations over the years. And one of the first locations, it was actually the original shelter house for YSS, was at 712 Burnett. That's actually where I found God, where my life was transformed 26 years ago. And we had a fire in 2018. And we made a decision as a leadership team and alongside the board of directors to take that money and preserve it for our future vision, which we're going to share a little bit later in the program, and donate the property to another organization that has a cause that's near and dear to our heart as it relates to human trafficking. So I'm very proud that YSS gifted, and of course it was a burnt facility, so the value was negligible, but they put just a ton of work effort into transforming that space into transitional living for women who are survivors of human trafficking. We know a lot of the kids that we serve, especially in our addiction treatment program, have experienced trafficking, and we're proud of the partnership with Wings of Refuge. All right, next up, I think we are going to introduce some guests. So we've got two very, very special people. Not me, two others. Eric Timmons, a graduate of 2000 from Youth Recovery House. He works at Ames Community Schools, but he's got a great story. And Jill Johnson, somebody that I look up to every day, somebody that's been kind of along the way, my path of recovery. In 1986, it's hard to believe it. You hardly look old enough, Jill, to have been in the program in 1986.
Thank you. Thank you.
What we're going to do is just kind of walk through your path. I think that we all know that alcoholism, drug addiction does not discriminate. Every walk of life is represented, and it also can strike at an early age. I'm grateful every day that we run a program that works with kids where we can hopefully get treatment in place before it becomes a chronic problem or you've got longer lasting issues. So I think we'll just start with you, Jill. Do you want to talk just a little bit about your path to YSS? Tell us how you ended up at YSS.
All right, sure. Well, I was introduced to alcohol and marijuana at the age of 12. And prior to that, I was very sensitive kid, very shy. And when I drank and smoked that marijuana, it was transformational and I loved it. So at that very young age, I began to be obsessed with feeling okay and getting more, to the point where I ran away from home, quit going to high school, junior high, started dealing drugs, got my first felony in 8th grade for dealing drugs at the junior high I went to. And I just kept pushing that line back. That certainly was not how I was raised, but I found something that made me feel better, and it just kept spiraling down. When I finally got to a place for help, I was kicked out of high school. I was living on the streets, sleeping in laundromats, sleeping in parks, maybe would eat, maybe not. and just kind of surviving. And I had a couple friends that, we camped out together, and I really, and my parents had tried a lot of things to help me, counselors, pastors, psychiatrists, and I really didn't seem to work. They'd say quit, and I would, and I still felt terrible. So that's where I ended up when I got picked up for the last time and put into a treatment center, and then found my way up to Ames, Iowa, into the 712 house.
So same place that I was at. You saw those photos. I hope at some point you'll get a chance to walk through that space, because it's been transformed. And it's just hard. I've heard your story, of course, before, and we hear a lot of stories that are not too dissimilar. But you were young. How old were you at the time that you came to 712 House?
15.
15 years old. And so, and I think that while, Jill's story sounds dramatic, there are other 15-year-olds out there going through similar things. Our program actually serves kids as young as 12. And so if you can imagine what it takes to get to the point of a substance use disorder diagnosis at 12 years old is pretty crazy. Let's do this. Let's kind of go back and forth. So Jill kind of got us up to speed on what got her to 712 House at YSS. Eric, also a friend of mine, a guy that I have breakfast and coffee with almost every Saturday morning as of late. Why don't you share just a little bit about your journey to YSS?
Thanks, Andrew. I could relate to about everything Jill said, except it took me longer to get to that first experience. But feeling restless, feeling like I didn't fit in was there from the beginning. And then when I was 15, I had friends that said, "Hey, why don't you try some drinking and some marijuana?" And it seemed to have a different effect on me than it did them, because I said, this is now what I want to do from here on out. Like nothing else matters anymore. And so my parents saw pretty quickly a big change. And, I had gone from being, a good student, being an athlete, a varsity swimmer for the little Cyclones in Ames. And then all of a sudden I had dreadlocks, and I didn't bathe, and my parents were worried, and they're justifiably so. And they, had me seeing a psychologist, and, I wasn't listening or being honest with anybody. I was running away, not coming home. I ended up in the 6th floor of Mary Greeley, and then an outpatient from there. In the outpatient program, they kept testing me to see if I was using, and I kept failing the test. So they said, "Hey, it's time for you to go to inpatient." And I said, "I'll be right back. I'm going to go to the bathroom." And I ran down, I was 17 at the time. I got in my car, my parents' car, and I left for several weeks. And, a friend of mine got put into 712, or said she was going to go to 712 House on like June 13th or something. And so I told my parents, "All right, I'll go on June 13th, but until then, I'm going to stay away, So I was like, at least I got this friend there, That's how I got there. And I lived in the 712 House, or I stayed at the YRH house, but my program was at the 712 House.
Yeah. And I feel a little, strange laughing at your stories, because these are really, deep, personal, traumatic experiences that most people wouldn't laugh at. But Eric and Jill and I have a relationship in recovery where our pasts are, really the foundation for the lives that we have today. And so as tough as those situations were, no doubt, we look back on them, and while they were difficult and tough, they're also the reason that we are where we are today. So So Jill, why don't you tell us just about your experience? What do you remember? I mean, hard to believe, but the program would have only been in existence for 5 years when you were there. What was it like?
Well, there was a lot of support. I really was not happy that I was in an all-girls halfway house. That was one thing, but it was the best thing for me. It really helped me to focus on my program and changing. I had great counselors, and just, a lot of support getting into recovery. That structure, getting back into high school and having support there. There was also a program with the high school where we had a room we could kind of go to and hang out and get help with school. And also to get away from, the environment where the drugs and alcohol might be. I think all of that helped to get a good foundation going.
Yeah. Well, let's just keep talking. So you graduated the program. Tell us what happened. Bring us kind of up to speed. Talk about where you are today.
Okay. Well, another YSS thing. So I graduated the program and I was only 16, and it became apparent that it wouldn't be good for me to go back home to Des Moines. So I stayed in Ames and went into foster care. And ended up, my last foster home was a lady named Carol Culver, who was amazing. And she just really helped support and change my life and encouraged me to, pursue what my dreams were. I graduated high school at 17 and moved out. And really, in my drinking, never thought I would live past 25. So all of a sudden I had people encouraging me that I could do whatever I want to with my life.
Yeah.
So I went to Iowa State and had some support there, and just started doing everything I was taught in the program, just that one step at a time, focus on the one class in the one semester. And I ended up doing well and graduated in advertising.
So you living on the streets, bad into drugs and alcohol, bouncing from place to place, felony charges, and you found your way to college, and you graduated.
Yeah.
And you stayed sober the whole time.
Stayed sober the whole time.
That's amazing.
Had a lot of support, and in that time, one of my running buddies that I would run away with, I tried to talk to him about sobriety, and he tried it for like a week and didn't think it was for him. And he ended up hanging himself, which was super heartbreaking for me. And that's something that in my sobriety, especially my first 3 years, I saw a lot of young kids my age commit suicide who were dealing with the same issues. So it kind of reaffirmed my sobriety and wanting to take the action and move forward, because it is life or death.
Yeah, I think, if you're around recovery long enough, you'll have a similar story. And that's unfortunate. The statistics say it's 1 in 6 of us will have a substance use disorder over a lifetime. That's a big number. And if you make your way to recovery, it's not easy, right? But if you make your way to recovery and you stick around, you're going to see people struggle. I also lost my very best friend I was 18 years old. He died of suicide, and I'm sure that it's why I'm still sober today, right? It reaffirmed just how serious this is. We like to joke and have fun, and recovery is fun, especially if you get yourself surrounded by a group of people, but it's also serious business. Eric, do you want to talk just a little bit about kind of your path through treatment, some of your memories, and what happened thereafter?
Yeah. I think the thing that I appreciate most about my time inpatient was that it removed me from the playgrounds, the places, the people, and gave me a chance to be, at least something approaching honest with what I was up against, mental health wise, the nature of how much my addiction had taken control. I couldn't talk to my parents about that in an honest way. I remember talking and connecting with counselors in the house. I remember one person coming in, taking us to Ryman Gardens, for a walk. And I remembered him ever since that time. And I saw him like a year ago in Ames, same guy. I said, hey, I was, I don't know how often that happens, that you go and you take, you go in to spend some time with some young men, boys, whatever. And 20 years later, you hear from one of them and they remember you and they say, thank you.
Yeah.
I've had that kind of thing happen, and I'm grateful for that. The relationships that I have had since, during also my stay there, friendships, Andrew, I probably met you around that time. You've been a friend now for 20 years or whatever it has been. And, another friend of mine, to speak to the seriousness of it, we met there. We were both musicians, and we played a lot of music when we were in the 712 house, and we stayed in touch and everything. And just last year he passed, he's my age, I don't exactly know what it was, but he didn't take the solution, that was offered to him. And so the last 20 years had been a struggle for him, yeah.
Eric, do this. Bring us up to speed. You've had some, you're a musician. I know you've got a band. You've, pursued a pretty serious academic career. But talk a little bit about that, and then just any advice that you have for a young person in recovery who we'll be talking to later, or a family who might be struggling with addiction.
Yeah, I mean, a long story short is I also started off going to school at DMAC first, and then realized that once you get rid of drugs and alcohol and you start following some pretty simple principles, I wasn't as dumb as I always thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out I was good at school, so I just kept doing it. I didn't want it to end, so I got a PhD. And I got a full scholarship to do research on music in East Africa. And I was teaching at a college until 2017. This is where life happens in sobriety. My dad got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. I was thinking I could stay here and follow a career in teaching at this college on the East Coast, or I can go home and be close to my dad. And what's important to me was spend as much time with my dad as I could, So I came back to Ames, and I went from somebody at 17 who didn't want to have anything to do with my dad, to getting to care for him and be his caretaker along with my brother and my mom during the last years of his life. And even he passed in our home with us by his side, So that's the kind of person that I've been able to become because of recovery. That all started back when I was there at YSS. As far as what I could say to, I go into the house, and that's been, a godsend.
You're a bit of a legend, is what we hear.
Well, we're all examples, good or bad. I don't know what one I am, but what, in all seriousness, my dad passed in February. Like the next day, or right about there, I got a call from somebody saying, hey, there's a kid who might, could use some mentorship. Do you have any, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, let me meet that kid, because I see in these young men the opportunity to get their life back. And, because I got my life back there, like even just the simplest things like playing my guitar,
yeah.
Which I remember doing a lot of in the house. So I don't know what advice to give, except to say that you can get your life back at any time, and you can get your if you're a parent or you're a loved one, my parents got their son back, and my dad got to have his son for a lot longer than he didn't, And I'm grateful for that. And I know my mom is grateful for that. So there's a lot of hope.
Yeah, we're grateful that you continue to serve YSS as a volunteer and give back and create hope and opportunity, inspire our kids. Jill, bring us up to speed with you. I know, obviously, you got sober as a young person. You had kids of your own. Tell us, to bring us up to speed.
All right. Well, so yeah, I graduated, started working a professional job, which was crazy. Never thought that would happen, and got married, had a couple kids in sobriety, and which was amazing, getting to be a sober mom and raise my kids in a happy, healthy environment. Moved out to the suburbs, and I remember that feeling of, wow, I can't believe this is my life. How did this happen? you know and still today, my life is still blessed. I have 4 stepchildren now, and 4 grandchildren, and I love every one of them. It's a privilege, and we have just great, loving, healthy relationships. I mentor women too, so I love that connection and trying to give back, because I certainly feel grateful and blessed for the opportunities that I've had to change my life.
Well, you, no doubt, and this is not an exaggeration, have helped hundreds of women, and I know it. You're such a great example. You've given so much of yourself in sobriety to people in recovery. We're going to go on to the next segment. Jill, do you have any advice for parents of preteens or folks that might be thinking that their kids are struggling?
The best thing that my parents did for me is they quit enabling me, which as a parent is the hardest thing, because you just want to get in there and help. And really, I didn't find a solution until they kind of, drew the line in the sand and said, we're done. You can't live here if you're going to behave like that, or you can't do these things, and surrender. But I guess that honesty.
That's great. I appreciate it. And I think, sometimes, as hard as it is, sometimes kids do have to experience some pain, right, before they're willing to do something different. That said, treatment works. It's obvious based on this group here. Recovery is possible. It's pretty cool. I think we're about 20 years sober, Eric, 25 years sober, me, 35 years sober. Jill, really grateful to each of you for your commitment, for coming back and sharing so personally. And thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, I'm going to turn it back over to you just to talk about where we're at today.
Yeah. So, a lot of good points there. And we're going to have Landon and Anna join us here. But there was a question here too that was presented in the comments about referring to our YSS program. So I do want to make sure people pay attention. There should be a scrolling bar underneath your screen here. It gives you a website and gives you a phone number. And referring to us, it doesn't require any kind of involvement in anything. You just got to call us, and we can help you. If you're having struggles, you yourself, or you have a family member who's having struggles, give us a call. And whether our program is the right fit for you, or whether we have some other services for you, or whether it's a different program, we're going to help you out. We're going to give you some resources and give you some guidance. And so please feel free to reach out to us. I'm not a YSS graduate, but I graduated from another treatment program. And so we want to help you. And so YSS is great. I love being a part of it. But of course, sometimes it's not a fit for everybody. There's other things. So we will be a resource for you. So please reach out for sure. So yeah, we have Landon and Anna here with us, and like Jill and Eric, they're also graduates, but these are more recent graduates. And so I think I'll start with Landon, because Landon, you finished, what was it, June of last year or August? When was that?
Yeah, it was June 29th of 2020.
June, yeah. So tell us a little bit like what Jill and Eric were telling us. What brought you to ISS, Landon?
Well, I got introduced to drugs and alcohol at 14, and it was started to become a problem with school and stuff, and then it kind of like toned down for maybe a good year, and then I guess I just couldn't keep away. I just liked the feeling, so got back to it, and didn't end up. I kept going to several different places. Went to the mental hospital a few times. Went to a few different homes. Went to an outpatient treatment, and then finally, the court said I had to go to YSS, and I was kind of hesitant. Really didn't want to have to like leave, especially for 3 months. That sounds like forever. But I ended up going there. It seemed pretty bad at first, but it started to really help me. So.
Well, you kind of you said a whole lot right there.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I mean, the things that you had to go through. I mean, that
Mhm.
you said it in like 20 seconds, but that was a lot of stuff. That's a lot of life that you experienced. And so you came to YSS and you were here for how long?
Around 3 months.
Okay. And so you graduated, and what's life going like for you now?
Well, I'm trying to finish high school now, on my last year. So then just been working and finishing schoolwork.
What's your passion? What's the kind of job that you want to be doing?
I know I want to own a business. I'm not sure what type of business yet, but for
Very
sure.
cool. Cool.
It's a great
Well,
aspiration, Landon.
yeah. And I hope the stories of like Andrew and Jill and Eric can encourage you, because I mean the whole world is open to you. So that's pretty exciting. Anna, going to you, you're a pretty recent grad.
Yes, I graduated the program on Friday, so I've only been out for a couple days, but already I'm so thankful for everything YSS has given me.
So what brought you to YSS, Anna?
Yeah, so I was introduced to drugs when I was 14. Never did marijuana to start out with. It was just nicotine. I was like, I tried it and I got hooked. It's that they call it like the addict's mentality, or right from the start I knew I had an addiction. And my parents moved me from Arizona to Iowa. I was getting in trouble in Arizona. I would get mad at my parents and I would get on my little bike and I'd go to my friend's house who weren't making good decisions, and that just really wasn't helping my grades, school, and not good for my future because they weren't making good decisions. So how would I be able to make good choices? So we moved up to Iowa. Still was hooked on the nicotine, but it was about a year into it. So my sophomore year, I tried alcohol for the first time, and I knew from the start that wow, this is something that is fun. This is what good times are made of, and I had the wrong impression of it. And so my sophomore year, I drank a little bit. Junior year, I was in Orchard Place, so when I would get mad at my parents, I kept the same behavior of getting on my little bike and going to a friend's house, and my parents were just fed up with it. So they sent me to Orchard Place. I was in there for 5 months, got out. I was cleaned up, but it never really touched on the whole substance abuse part of it. So I fixed my behavioral issues, but the addiction was still there. So my senior year, I started drinking again, still addicted to the nicotine, and I had tried marijuana. And I had done it enough to the point where it was a problem. I didn't want to admit it was a problem. But one night I went out drinking with some friends, and I ended up slashing someone's tires. Worst decision of my life, but you never make good choices when you're under the influence of alcohol. And that night was when I realized I need help. So I ended up going to my parents and admitting what I had done, and just thanks to them, I was put in the YSS program and I got the help I needed.
What was being at YSS like for you? If you could talk about it a little bit.
It was tough at first. I knew I needed to be there, but I didn't want to be there, of course. but it's just a really welcoming. It's like a second home almost. The people there, they love their job, and they know that a lot of them, like all of all of you, they've gone through the same things, and it's been really inspiring hearing other people's stories, but then also living with other people that have the same stories.
You guys, so new to sobriety, sharing so eloquently. We've got lots of comments talking about how brave you are, and how inspiring your stories are. Anna, I knew you recently, and just can't imagine, any sort of behavior issues, because you were just so well-mannered, so polite. And an interesting element of adolescent recovery is that I think that because our frontal lobes aren't fully developed, sometimes it takes a jolt. It takes something significant happening before we're willing to do things differently. And you came to the realization almost on your own before you came to treatment. So while it was tough to push through those initial few weeks away from your family and in a new setting, you had that realization. I think, Landon, I'm not quite sure if, when you had the realization. For me, and I think even Eric and Jill shared a little bit about, it didn't happen for me until I was 6 weeks into treatment. I didn't realize that I was the issue, or that I needed to make change until the early part of treatment. And that's part of the job of Matthew and his staff.
Yeah. And there's actually an old saying that it says, change never happens until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. And that's something that I've carried with me through all of treatment, through working in treatment for 20 years. And that's what it takes. I mean, we have to have a jolt. We have to have something that says, yeah, this is just not okay anymore. So, Anna, what's your future looking like? What are you moving towards?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go to Iowa State in the fall. Super excited to get that scholarship from YSS that they're offering. I'm gonna major in animal science, and then I plan to go into the vet med program.
I can't wait to have vet alumna from YSS. We're going to talk about some of our visions in the future, and we're talking about equine therapy and pet therapy, and how can we incorporate the healing power of animals into our work, and would love to have you come back. You mentioned the scholarship. I just want a big shout out to Marianne and Jim Black, who endowed a scholarship at YSS to support young people in recovery. So you've got to graduate the program, complete it successfully, and then stay sober. And so it's motivation for kids who are in the program, and that propulsion to college. So excited, Anna, to have you back to Ames in the fall, and really excited to see your progress. Landon, you mentioned college might be in your future as well. Scholarships available for you. I think there's a lot of very successful people that started by wanting to start their own business. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So I do want to thank Landon and Anna for you guys coming on and sharing your stories. It is really brave, and coming out of treatment, that's a hard thing to do, to share your story. But I will say, the more you share it, the more you get out there with your in your community and share your story. I mean, it gives you strength. It gives you power. It helps you. It helps you in your sobriety, and you're going to find that there's so many people out there with similar stories. So many people that you can help, and it starts to bring a lot of joy for you. So keep living strong. Keep staying connected. And keep sharing your story. We have shared a little bit about the past, and we've talked about the present, and now we're going to talk about the future, because we have a great vision for YSS residential treatment. And so I'm going to turn that over to Andrew to talk a little bit more about what that looks like.
Yeah, you bet. There's no big announcement today. We're just going to tease it a little bit, but we've already shared with many of our donors across the organization about a really significant major gift that we received from Dr. Jay Brown and his wife, Lori Savalsky. Just about a year ago, we were talking about this idea that for 40 years, we've been serving youth out of old homes. And for a lot of years, those homes met a really specific need. We pride ourselves in being home-like in the atmosphere. I think you heard Anna say it's kind of like a second home. So that home-like feel is so important versus an institutional feel that you might see at a hospital. And so we've been thinking about how can we connect kids to nature in a way and have facilities that support the healing and holistic treatment that we're providing as an agency. So Dr. Jay Brown bought into our vision, and he has donated a 53-acre parcel of property between Ames and Des Moines, just maybe a mile off the interstate, timber, prairie, and it's just a beautiful scenic setting. So we're starting to get our kids in the current program out there now. We got some fat tire bikes to ride around, and we're starting the process of envisioning what a best-in-class treatment center set in nature, holistic, restorative, focused on ensuring that kids from across the state have the very best opportunity to stay sober. And I'm expecting an announcement in the next few months. We're putting our plans together. There's just nothing that I won't do to try to ensure that every kid's got hope and opportunity. Dr. George Blitzos, the founder of YSS, one of my greatest personal and professional mentors, blood, sweat, and tears for 39 and a half years to establish Iowa's first emergency shelter for runaway and homeless youth, to create an addiction treatment program that served now nearly 5,000 kids, to build an organization that today is serving 20,000 kids and families over the course of a year, 40 programs, 7 different communities, 2 statewide programs. The momentum that we have as an organization is great, and it's timely. I am very concerned about the impact that the pandemic is having on the mental health of kids and families, the isolation that occurred, the uncertainty that was exacerbated anxiety and depression, the lack of connectedness. While we are in an over-connected society as it relates to devices, that personal connection has been lacking. I mentioned going to breakfast with Eric and some friends. We just started back at that recently, and I have missed that personal connection, as have many other people. So we know kids and families have been experiencing trauma, and we know that trauma will manifest itself in mental health and behavioral health disorders. We know that kids will be self-medicating with drugs and alcohol to subdue the pain that comes from anxiety and help them push through depression. So as we emerge from a pandemic, many in the field of child welfare are expecting a tsunami of needs, especially from a mental health standpoint. Alcohol sales are up. Drug use is up. Overdose had been on the decline for the past 3 years. 2020 was a record year as it related to overdose deaths. So kids and families are suffering, and we are working tirelessly. Matthew, his team, the leadership team, more than 300 YSSers, tirelessly to try to deliver on our mission to create hope and opportunity. And I can't wait for the big reveal and the big announcement that's coming soon as it relates to our future plans for YSS's adolescent addiction treatment program.
Yeah, and in fact, Andrew and I were just talking about this morning. Actually, we were on a call with somebody about the need because of the pandemic and what's going on, and that is for sure a real thing. It is happening. It's hard, and I just want to refer people again to the scrolling along the bottom. If you need help, go into our website or giving us a call at 515-233-4930. Again, if even if you don't feel like you need residential level of care, we will give you resources. We'll help give you some answers. We'll help guide you. We have a lot of professionals on our team that can help with that. So we want to help guide you with whatever that you might need.
And I'll just say you don't have to suffer alone. Here's the thing: when somebody has cancer or a young person is diagnosed with leukemia or diabetes, what happens? They post it on social media, and a Caring Bridge site is posted, and a GoFundMe page is created, and people do potlucks, and they come around to support a family when a child is sick. When a young person has substance use disorder, and what it looks like is defiance, or the police at your door, or an out of control situation, what happens? The stigma is such that the family isolates and doesn't ask for help and doesn't share their story because they're embarrassed because of the stigma. Guess what, guys? Substance use disorder is diagnosable, and it's treatable. And so, the message is don't suffer alone. 1 in 6 of us will have a substance use disorder over a lifetime. You just saw from half a dozen, right, on the call, Matthew and I, in recovery, long-term recovery. 90% of drug addicts and alcoholics start before they're 18 years of age. So we know across the state there's kids suffering, there's families who need help, and take the opportunity to make a phone call. Check us out online. There's a lot of great programs across the state, only a few that are focused on kids, however, and we look forward to the opportunity to help transform more lives.
So before we kind of close out or talk about next week, we do want to turn it over to a great opportunity we have from some students at Iowa State University. And so Nala and Morgan are here with us. And so if you guys want to kind of introduce yourselves and talk about this opportunity people have, we'd love to hear it.
And on your best behavior, Matthew, because Nala may or may not be one of my bosses.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nala, one of Andrew's bosses. I'm a youth representative on the board of YSS, and I've been on it since my junior year of high school. I grew up in Ames, so I'm here with my group mate, Morgan, as Andrew had just said, and we both attend Iowa State. We joined YSS this year during their 40th anniversary. It just worked out very well of their residential treatment program to raise money for their scholarship program that goes back to the alumni of the residential treatment program. We're a group of 7 students who have come together to give back to our community and hopefully help transform somebody's life. And we'd like to share this opportunity with you all and show what you can do to help us reach our fundraising goal and help kids who are struggling with drug addictions in our own community.
Yeah, so as Nala said, we were with Iowa State and we were given the opportunity to partner with YSS, and we decided to raise this money that we would reach out to organizations and businesses around Ames and surrounding areas, in which they generously donated items to be bid on. Those will go live. I think they're live right now on Facebook, the YSS page. Some of those are like gift cards, rounds of golf, things like that. And we will be announcing the winners of these items next Thursday on this same exact link on Facebook. And we just hope that you guys can help support us in our efforts to support YSS.
Love it. It's like kids helping kids. You guys really aren't kids, though. Young adults. Young adults. Grateful for the partnership with Iowa State. Nala has been an awesome youth board member. I was a youth board member at one point, so who knows? Maybe someday you will succeed me.
Oh, no one can do your job better than you, Andrew.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I do know that you are going to go on to do great things. You're both studying marketing. I know, Nala, you've got aspirations to go to law school. So someday we might need general counsel at
hope I can help.
Really appreciate the way that you guys put this program together. Sounds like there's items to bid on Facebook. I don't know exactly how that works, but I know you guys do. And these funds will go to support kids like Landon and Anna. We're going to put it into the scholarship fund, and no doubt it will have a lasting impact on a lot of people's lives.
That's the hope and the plan.
Thanks for all that you guys are doing.
Thank you for letting us do it.
Well, I want to give a thank you to Morgan and Nala for all the work they're doing for us. That's really great. And I want to thank you too to Eric and Jill and Anna and Landon for being on tonight. And this has just been a great opportunity to kind of talk about the stories, the stories of hope and just the ability to overcome, which I think so many people just need to hear, especially in this day and age. And hear those positive stories. So I wanted to tell next week we will be on next Thursday at 7 again. And we are going to talk about the power of connections. We're going to talk about relationships, with which Andrew and I have talked about, but you've also heard from stories that have been shared tonight about how important those connections and relationships are. And I think also next week is the 1-year anniversary of Let's Talk. Is that right? Is that what I heard? I believe that is.
Somebody mentioned that earlier tonight. Hard to believe. What a great idea. I really appreciate the whole team that works to put this thing on. You know, it was bred out of the need to connect with people because we were in the midst of a pandemic, and it's just such a great way to get the word out. So grateful for everybody that has put so much effort into the past year.
Yes, indeed. So thank you to everybody, and I hope everyone has a great night and has a great weekend. Stay safe and be safe. Take care.